Boross, we are proud and honored to have you here. He assumed Chief Auxiliary Devoting Safety duties on 29 July 2013. A career HU-25 fixed-wing aviator with broad operational and aeronautical engineering officer experience. Captain Boross's prior assignment was at the Aviation Logistics Center Executive Officer from June 2010 to June 2013 in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. Yeah. Licensed certified public accountant in addition to the Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from West Virginia University. Holds a master's degree in public administration degree from Old Dominion University. I think some people know that in this room. His military awards include 2 Meritorious Service Medals, 2 Coast Guard Commendation Medals, the Coast Guard Achievement Medal, Volunteer Service Medal, and numerous other personal and unit awards. Captain Boross is from Pittsburgh, native son of the late Mr. Francis and Miss Carol Boross, and a proud graduate of Pittsburgh Central Catholic High School. He is married to the former Sandra Whitney of Munhall, Pennsylvania, and father of U.S. Coast Guard Ensign Jacob Boross. If you remember, he was with us in the fall training. U.S. Coast Guard Academy class of 2013, currently serving aboard as a deck watch officer aboard U.S. Coast Guard Cutter Forward. And daughter Whitney, a rising junior at Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. So, Captain, it is a great pleasure with everything that's on your plate, your schedule, to take time out of your busy schedule to spend time with us for your remarks. Sir.
Thank you, Commodore Maluski, Commodore Rain. Sure. Fred and gentlemen, everyone at the head table, Chief of Staff Adams, all of you here in attendance this afternoon, on behalf of Reverend Paul Thomas, the Coast Guard's Chief of Prevention, and his Deputy, Captain Vern Gifford. It's an honor for me to appear here today representing the men and women of the Coast Guard's Office of Auxiliary and Boating Safety. I did a head count. There's approximately 90 people in the room, and I have 38 people up at headquarters that work for me. And I appreciate the comments that Mr. Friedman made, that Dave made, and with respect to the productivity of our staff up there. But I have 8 souls. Of the 38, I have 8 souls that are trying very hard, thank you, Scott, to support you all, to support just over 27,000 auxiliarists up at Coast Guard headquarters. So it's me and a staff of 8 on the BSX-1 side, and then on the other side, I've got the 30 other employees that are working to support the 56 states and territories and alignment with the National Recreational Boating Safety Strategic Plan and the fiduciary responsibilities that we have to distribute the sport, fish, restoration, and boating trust funds that David mentioned earlier. But I have a potpourri of items to cover because your Commodore asked me to speak to a number of items, but he wanted me to make certain that everything I discussed here today was why our efforts really matter. Why our efforts really matter. And Scott, you got that other mic? I'm going to ask for help. Kurt, from Randy, from Gus. Good to see you, Gus. Okay. Sure. And at different points in my presentation, I'm going to ask, as Coast Guard men and women excel at doing, at asking for help from the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary. And I'm here today because you heard Reverend Metrick with his framing dialogue. He encouraged Chris, Joe, and Lonnie myself and Steve, and any other active duty member that's here in the room. It's with profound gratitude that we communicate with you all at all times. It's profound gratitude because we realize you're all sitting here right now. You could be anywhere else in the world right now, but you're here. You are here. As cold as it is outside, as inclement as some of the travel was, and even though you gave Joe props for traveling farther than anybody else, Commodore, I'm the one that risked I-95 to take So, Joe just had those lovely North Carolina country roads to get up here, and so big, big difference. But I'm honored to be here and with profound gratitude. If you walk out of this room and you have any other vibe from Steve, myself, or my peers or colleagues, that we don't get it, and that we don't appreciate what you're doing with your lives, then we're not sending the right message. And so hopefully what I communicate this afternoon will resonate with you now, and will resonate with you each day as you go forward. Because I'm here to thank you, but I'm also here to ask you for more help. Your United States Coast Guard, we need your help. We have absolutely outsourced the recreational boating safety mission to the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary, and to a somewhat lesser extent to the U.S. Power Squadrons. And so, why our efforts really matter. I'm here to remind and acknowledge the fact that but for your ability to be the break in the chains, mishaps and negative outcomes befall Americans. And so, I'm setting the table. Kurt, if you would please, if you would read what I have highlighted in green, please, the date, location, and please read that.
4/18/2015, East Lacka, Florida. The body of a 9-year-old Jathan Pate Ricks was found in the St. Johns River just 36 hours after it went missing. While he was on a fishing trip, Ricks, who went by the name Tate, was also fishing with family and friends in a 14-foot John boat about 5:30 p.m. on Saturday. Awake from another vessel, sent a 50-year-old man and Tate into the water. According to News 4 Jax, the man was able to make it to the surface and back on shore, but Tate did not. Tate's body was found early Monday morning by rescue crews in St. Johns River near Corkeysville Marina and restaurant, about a quarter mile from where it fell into the water. The boy's family will be holding a candlelight vigil at 6 p.m. at the city boat ramp, and everyone is welcome. Putnam County Speedway will also be offering a fundraiser for Tate's family on Saturday at the Speedway. The event will feature music, raffle, drawings. Donations be collected for the family.
Thank you, Kurt. How many of you in this room right now are grandparents? Okay, thank you. Tate went fishing with his grandfather, his 51-year-old grandfather, and they were on their 14-foot John boat. The family was all there, and 9-year-old Tate did not have a life jacket on. As I was walking into the hotel this afternoon, I walked by the fabulous Fifth's trailer out there, and the picture of the Coastie robot that you guys have there. And I am so proud of the mission that you all perform, because you all get it, because the United States Coast Guard and the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary are doing our best to promote safety awareness from infants and toddlers, preteens to teens, to septuagenarians, okay? We are responsible for an American demographic that, again, from infants to 80-year-old plus people. That little 9-year-old boy that didn't have his PFD on, when you know what comes across my desk every week, and in April of 2015, when that one came across my desk, and I read that, it just burns me up inside, because we know better. And we have a responsibility to do everything we can to make certain that here in 2016, we don't have more tape wrecks occur. And you all are the people that the American public out there, especially the 51-year-old grandfather that we failed to get through to before that fateful day, you all have the ability to present yourselves in a non-intimidating fashion. You all have the ability to be a safe harbor, if you will, where people that may not trust us, that are active duty law enforcement officials, but they'll look upon a Coast Guard auxiliarist in uniform, they'll look upon you as a beacon, as a lighthouse, as a safe harbor of good information, because you're going to speak to their interests. You're going to encourage them. You're going to elevate their awareness about, okay, if you're going out on the water today, these are the things you need to be aware of before you go. This is the equipment that you must have. This is the way that we can optimize our experience on America's waterways wherever that occurs. And that is a distinct difference between the active duty and the Coast Guard auxiliary. And we're very much aware of that. So when I read that mishap message, that resonated with me, because as I'm asking you now, what are each of you going to do about that? Every one of these mishaps that comes across my desk every week, my challenge to my staff is, what are we going to do about this? Because that 9-year-old did not deserve to die, okay? And you don't. This is not about blame. This is not about allocating accountability. It's about preventing a similar tragedy for another one of our neighbors, for another one of our American families, for those people that we are supposed to be protecting and serving and leading. And so why I have so much respect for Coast Guard auxiliaries is because people turn to you. They look at you and they recognize, like the American Red Cross symbol, like a lighthouse beacon, they look upon you as fonts of knowledge and a safe harbor for a place where, you know, they can go and manifest their ignorance. They may not know how to use this radio. They may not know how to use this navigational gear. But boy, they want to use it. They want to get out there and they want to conquer. They want to get out there and they want to enjoy the water. And so, you're here over these 3 days to come together, take time out of what you're doing out there to come together and focus on your readiness and focus on your proficiency. I'm so honored because while I am serving as your chief director, I'm getting to serve with your national commodore, Mark Simone. And for those of you you may not know him personally, I've gotten to know him very well. I really appreciated his approach and his tact and the fact that he's responding to what Vice Admiral Currier challenged you all in January of 2013 at that end training in St. Louis to be a headlights oriented organization, to be looking ahead. And so I have so much respect for Commodore Mark Simone and for the gauntlet that he continues to throw down because he is paying attention to the messages that the flag officers have been delivering to you all. And I bring these navigators here because the navigators, I don't know the last time you picked up your navigator. Come on, Brent. Good to see you, sir. So, good to see you, sir. Yeah, absolutely. I just saw him come in. I didn't know he was here. Hey, he's on NextCom, and I enjoy so much dealing with your Commodore on NextCom, back and forth, anything that you do. But I bring these to highlight this because I don't know the last time you picked this up. But other than Commodore Simone's auxiliary strategic plan, if you want another template, if you want ideas, if you want to continue to challenge yourselves, I respectfully submit, pull these issues out and read Admiral Pack's words, and read Admiral Zukamp's words, and read Admiral Thomas's words. Because the challenge for each of you, and the challenge for me, and the challenge that Commodore Simone is stepping up to and spearheading, that is that capability provides relevancy. And he's continuing to look for ways to make your organization more relevant to the United States Coast Guard. And so he's embracing that challenge and he's leading. I also want to call you out because just this past week, your basic boat handling course is now online. So Randy and the U.S. Power Squadrons, they had a jump start on electronic course deliveries, and they have magnificent online course offerings. Well, the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary now has a basic boat handling course online. And if you haven't looked at it, if you haven't worked on it, please do. You have a product, a world-class product, that you have justifiable pride that you can take in. And it's an example, again, of Admiral Thomas's remarks to you all in the interviews about looking for ways for you all to take your mission set and your expertise and go to where the voters are. And the challenge, though, that the U.S. Power Squadron and the Coast Guard Auxiliary has, the demographic challenges that you have, they're very real. Last year, the U.S. Power Squadron was at 36,000. We're going down to Orlando next week. Power Squadron's enrollment is just over 30,000. When I came into this job as your Chief Director in 2013, the Coast Guard Auxiliary was just under 32,000. At the beginning of this year, we're just over 27,000. Your United States Coast Guard has a vested interest in your organization and in the U.S. Power Squadrons because you're the best boating safety ambassadors in the world. Nobody else is doing what you're doing. And Commodore Simpson wanted me to talk about and comment about why recreational boating safety still remains our #1 mission for the Coast Guard Auxiliary. Randy, could you read number 2 for me, please?
Search goes on for 4th Illinois man after Wisconsin canoe accident. January 3rd, 2016, East Troy, Wisconsin. 3 former New Trier students were found dead, and 1 is still missing Tuesday afternoon after a canoe capsized in a lake in southern Wisconsin over the weekend. The 4 men, all between 20 and 23, were staying at a lake house with friends in East Troy, Wisconsin, according to Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Recreational Safety Warden Jason Roberts. The 4 stepped outside to have a cigarette around 2:30 a.m. Sunday, Roberts said. The others went to bed, and when they woke up around 10 a.m., they noticed the 4 weren't in their beds. The group searched, saw footprints leading down to the boathouse, where a canoe was missing, Roberts said. They walked down to the water, saw the canoe overturned against an ice shelf, and called 911. Dive teams responded, and within a few hours, bodies of 2 men were found on the lake bed. A 3rd body was recovered Monday afternoon. 3 of the victims have been identified as Christopher J. McQuillan, 21, Lanny Patrick Sack, 20, Maury Weinstein, 21. According to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, the search is ongoing Tuesday afternoon for the 4th victim, who has not yet been identified.
Thank you, Randy. I had Randy highlight that case because every 3rd day in the 56 states and territories, every 3rd day, an alcoholic or alcohol plays a role in a boating fatality. I also highlight this case because it represents the demographic challenge that we all have in this room, because I know I'm looking at accomplished Americans. You've all lived lives of purpose. And in terms of where you're at on Maslow's hierarchy, you're at the top of that pyramid, okay? We in our office, we talk about how we can get effective boating safety messages out there to what we call the omniscients and the invincibles. And that's that male 18 to 49-year-old demographic. They're omniscient, baby. You guys don't know jack. They're so much smarter than us, and they're invincible. And then you mix alcohol into that mix. And alcohol and a canoe and 2 inches of ice on a body of water, and now 4 families have suffered a horrible tragedy 3 days into this new year. So that's the stuff that comes across my desk. Why is recreational boating safety job 1 for you all? Okay, there's roughly 90 people here in this room. Commodore Simone and I talk about this all the time. Each and every one of you has a family beyond your Coast Guard Auxiliary family and beyond your Coast Guard family. But your equity extends. Literally, there's 90 people in here. There's 9,000 people that I'm talking to right now. And hopefully, I'm resonating. I'm resonating with your daughters. I'm resonating with your sons. I'm resonating with your nephews. Because I need you to be aware of all the contributing causal factors that contribute to recreational boating safety mishaps. I need you to be aware of the statistics. I need you to be aware of what's going on out there so that you can help me in a very creative way, as Commodore Simpson does with this world-class document. He highlighted the 6 C's. The fabulous 5th. If you haven't read this, kudos to Penny, because I believe she's the author of this. This is a compendium. I know he didn't write it, right? We all know that. But communication, coordination, cooperation, creativity, and commitment. He wanted me to speak to the point that we need your commitment to recreational boating safety in all facets and in all forms and in all milieux. In powerboat, in sail, and especially in human power. Because there's a couple other mishaps here that I want to be shared with you all. Because again, what comes across my desk at Coast Guard headquarters in Washington, D.C. Gus, can you read the next one, please?
January 17th, 2016, just a couple weeks ago, Warrenton, Oregon. Heather Wyland and Tim Walker looked out the window at exactly the right moment. What they saw horrified them. A father and his young son capsized in a canoe on Smith Lake near Warrenton on Sunday afternoon. The father, 27-year-old Kyle Harkless of Warrenton, drowned. Harkless's son, 7-year-old Logan, was transported to Columbia Memorial Hospital and is expected to fully recover. While searching for Harkless, emergency responders used the lakefront house owned by Tim's brother, Brian Walker, and his wife, Kyle Walker, as base of operations. Wyland and the Walkers were watching the Denver Broncos beat the Pittsburgh Steelers when at about 4 o'clock the ordeal began. Tim looked out the window and said, "Oh my God, that canoe just flipped over." Brian said, "We looked out, and yet there was an upside-down canoe in the lake." They charged outside, assessed the situation. I yelled, "Do you need help?" Kylie Walker said. And the kid was saying, "My daddy's underwater." As Kylie Walker called 911, Heather dived into the water and swam eastward toward the pair, floundering more than 100 feet away near the middle of the lake. The brothers unhooked a neighbor's floating dock. Tim grabbed an oar, Brian a 2x4, and together they rowed out. If you were going to look at it in real time, it wasn't that long, Brian said. It felt like forever.
Thank you, guys. I highlight this case too, and I was so appreciative that Captain Christine emphasized to you cold water immersion and the risks of cold water immersion, and the fact that Hampton Roads water temperature is a lot colder than people think it is, or bother to even ponder. The risk of cold water immersion, as well as not wearing a personal flotation device, not wearing a life jacket, and the risk of being struck by a propeller from a vessel that you've been either ejected from or somebody else's vessel, and the propeller striking you when you're in the water and that vessel not realizing you're in the water. These are the contributing causal factors into the negative outcomes that make recreational boating safety, which is absolutely inherently safe. It is a safe activity. It's a fantastic activity. It represents in the United States of America the quote-unquote good life. And you all know that. You've been living the good life for years. And you know how to go out there into harm's way. In harm's way in the sense that anytime you get underway in an auxiliary surface asset, or anytime you get launched in your aircraft to go do an auxiliary air patrol, there is nothing benign about what your United States Coast Guard asks you to do. Nothing benign. There are risks around the next second, around the next issue. I want to call out your Dirox of Commander Steve Batchko, because he did a magnificent job in performing his duties on the mishap investigation board with Captain Tim Shank. I'm so proud of Auxiliaries Rosenberg and Pearson, the pilots, the auxiliary pilots that were flying a Cessna. For 1 minute they had a Cessna, and in the next minute they were flying a glider because their engine manifold pressure was lost. They very heroically flew their aircraft, and when they were about to land, they realized there were people on a soccer field, and so they literally performed an approach, turn, stall maneuver to avoid hitting those people on the soccer field. With awareness of the risks that they were managing, the actions that they took, which resulted in serious, life-threatening, and now permanent injuries. They very heroically performed their airmanship responsibilities. So I want to thank Steve, because he made major contributions to that mishap investigation. And I want to publicly acknowledge and laud the great work that Auxiliaries Rosenberg and Pearson did in the conduct of that mission. And I bring that up to highlight it because, again, there is nothing benign about what we ask you all to do on any one of your missions. I'm also going to refer to the May 20th Hillsborough, Florida, the Hillsborough Inlet mishap, the surface mishap, the serious surface mishap that we experienced this past year. And all I can say about that right now is, please make certain if you're doing anything at night, you're always slowing down, taking your time, and that you're maintaining as vigilant a lookout doctrine as you possibly can. It's basic requirements. And if you do the basic requirements, chances are the evolution will go successfully and without injury, especially at night when your margins of safety are degraded. So, thank you for letting me get those plugs in. I'm getting conscious of the time here, and I'm going to wrap it up because I'm running out of time. Because I can go on for hours with you all.
And be with us at dinner, we can continue the conversation.
They'll be waving the white flag on the But I want to, it was amazing that Reverend Metro said what he said about continuing. Because we've been tasked by Reverend Thomas to write this upcoming fall's proceedings. And we're writing it. But I'm bringing you I want to read you an excerpt from the 1961 proceedings. Because Admiral Metrick talked about the continuum. There is a continuum here. And then Admiral Richmond, the Commandant of the United States Coast Guard, in 1961 said the following: "Safety afloat is a combination of education, common sense, and courtesy. The Coast Guard and the Coast Guard Auxiliary endeavor to assist boat owners and operators by recommending safe boating practice and sponsoring educational materials and classes. The remaining safety elements of common sense and courtesy must be supplied by you, the boating public. Only with your help can we make our partnership in boating safety a success. Help us to halt the growing record of needless death and injury." And that was from, he was summarizing in early 1961, the statistics from 1960. And I am so proud to report to you all that the last 36 months that we just went through, and I can go back to the last 48 months, if RBS is job one for you and the United States Power Squadrons, the collaborative effort combined by all of you in the United States Coast Guard and all of our state law enforcement and non-government organization boating safety advocates and entities, the efforts that you have all been focused on has generated the 4 safest years on record for recreational boating safety in the United States. We lost 651 souls in 2012. 2013, we set a watershed all-time low, 560 souls. 2014, we were at 610. And I have the 2015 number, but I can't share it with you because we're still reconciling the BARD and media reports. And right now, the BARD has only 585 deaths last year reported in BARD. But we have media reports of dozens more. And so we're going to come in over 600 again, but we're still going to be below where we were in 2012, and it looks like we're going to be slightly above where we were in 2014. And I share that with you because even though that represents unprecedented success, it represents for all of us as Coast Guardsmen as failures. Because that young Tate Ricks is one of those fatalities in that 2015 database. There was a case out in Bear Lake, Utah on June 1st, and I received an email from David Doms, the Idaho Boating Law Administrator. And David sent me an email to inform me of this tragic mishap that occurred. And I'm going to read this to you. Captain Boross, good morning. It was great to see you last week at the NBSAC meeting. Last night there was a horrific boat accident on Bear Lake in Idaho. I wanted to send you information on this accident before you see it in the bad report. Despite the fact that it appears all passengers were wearing PFDs, 4 people perished, including tragically 3 children. Bear Lake is an extremely large body of water that straddles the Idaho-Utah border and is very susceptible to high winds and large waves. It appears the boat left the north end of the Idaho portion of the lake and was heading back to the Utah marina when high winds were encountered. Reports of winds up to 51 miles per hour, and the boat capsized. The investigation is underway, but initial reports indicate that this boat may have been a rental. 7 people were reported to be on the boat at the time of capsizing. The water temperature was 53 degrees, folks. All 7 souls on board, and the vessel was piloted by 46-year-old Dr. Lance Kaepner. Dr. Lance Kaepner was a highly successful doctor, one of the most highly educated Americans that we are hired and that you volunteer to serve. He lost situational awareness of the weather. He was out there trying to get one more skiing evolution in before seeking safe harbor. He left behind his widow and 2 of his kids and 2 of his daughters. The 13-year-old and the 7-year-old drowned tragically, as well as a 14-year-old friend of the family's another girl. When I received that email from David Doms, I immediately did what I could do with the BSAC members and the RBS specialists around our Coast Guard, and I highlight that to you because regardless of how much knowledge we have, regardless of how much innovation we have, if we don't pay attention to the weather, if we don't pay attention to the forecast, if we do not pay attention to the water temperature, if we don't know what cold water immersion will do to ourselves and our family members, then we're not doing as well as we should be doing, folks. I need your help, because if one of the most educated people our country and our society can produce can get involved in a mishap like that, it screams interventions from people who have a wealth of experience and where you all have uncommon amounts of common sense. Like the Commandant said back in 1961, common sense and courtesy. And so I need you to be committed to your recreational boating safety mission. I need you to continue to demonstrate your unparalleled common sense. And quite frankly, your unparalleled courtesy also. Auxiliaries are some of the most respectful people I've ever been around in my life. I am so inspired by the Commodore Ed Livingstons, the Commodore Dean Weimers, the Ken Browns. I mean, I can go on and on and on. The Rob Sersons, the way Rob stepped up and seized this opportunity here with Steve Fatchkill and myself, and has done a fantastic job, Commodore. I'm not saying it just because you invite me back, by the way, and because you're paying for my dinner. I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it because I'm saying it because Joe Dufresne told you 147,000 hours. Well, I know that you do 3.7 million hours annually around the 56 states and territories. 3.7 million hours you all contribute to the United States Coast Guard. I am awestruck by Chief of Staff Adams. When you called me and invited me a year and a half ago to this last teacher, what did you say to me on the phone?
I think I said, sir.
You did. And I got to give you a call out because I absolutely love it, because optimism and accountability are force multipliers. Optimism and accountability are force multipliers. And if you spend 5 minutes with Chief of Staff Adams, then when you hear things like uplifting spirit and dadgum good overall, you know, who talks like that? He does. And so, my point is, optimism and accountability are force multipliers.
Sir, would you order that still go out of patrol with you?
Amen, Chief of Staff. I absolutely got to give you that range of dates.
I will.
And we will do that. But my point is, because I know I got to wrap up, I respect what you're doing. You could be doing anything else with your lives. You could be taking your boats, you could be taking your aircraft, you could be doing whatever else you want to do with it, but what you do is you put yourself into harm's way to try to help us augment our readiness force requirements. So, thank you so much for doing what you're doing. We need so much more from you. And Steve Fatchkill will be rolling out an initiative with you in terms of, for those of you that want to become auxiliary adjudicators, and volunteer your time at Simpson and help us arrest a 2,900 backlog in auxiliaries approval pending status, because your United States government is beset by background check and security challenges, and we lack the resources across the entire federal government to allocate and devote resources to the emerging threats in the cyber realm that we're all dealing with. How many of you in here got the notice from OPM that your PII was compromised? Yeah, my wife, I'm putting my wife, that hand's for my wife and this one's for me too. So, and there's a constant assault upon our digital information, and the background check, security process, and adjudications for those that want to join ranks with us, it's all intertwined, folks. So, we're going to need your help. I need volunteers that have a D5SR. I'm going to stand up down at Simpson, an auxiliary background check product line, and Steve is going to be our point man for doing it. So for those of you that really want to help us with the biggest challenge that Mark Simone has identified to me in my office, and that is your approval pending status and your lack of getting an auxiliary identification card in a timely manner. Hey, you're going to help us be part of the solution. Hopefully. We need your help. So, look at our wrap. I could literally go on for hours. Sir, ma'am, I'm sorry, I can't even get to those. Those were 2 duck hunter mishaps that I was going to have them read. And again, Randall Metrick stood up and he articulated to you the awareness. We've got duck hunter mishaps occurring. We need you to do focused outreach to the hunting communities in your localities. The duck hunter mishaps that we have experienced thus far, completely preventable. They don't think of themselves as boaters, folks. They think of themselves as hunters. They think of themselves not like you do. All right, so they're going out in that environment. And so we need your help to address that. Okay. The other thing I want to point out to you, please, how many surface asset owners are in here? Please, raise your hands. Okay, how many coxswains are in here? All right. I really need you to demonstrate on a consistent basis, please, if you are not wearing an engine cutoff switch, a lanyard, if you're not using it during the conduct of your missions, please, I'm asking you, exhibit that behavior which we need to have safe boaters proliferate. You have to help me proliferate safe boating behaviors, one of which is to wear the lanyard with the engine cutoff switch. So if you're currently not employing an engine cutoff switch, please do so. I'm asking you to do that because that is the single greatest contributing issue to the injuries that are occurring to the boating public. Their propeller or some other boat's propeller is horrific, horrific injuries if nobody's ever seen a manifestation of what that does. Okay, you got to give me 1 more minute, Mark, I promise. Last thing I'm going to do is I want to end with words from Alexander Hamilton, and I use these words at D-Train, and it's a point that I need to emphasize to you all, and I may not do it because I misplaced it. That's what happens when you don't leave, oh there we go, headquarters until 10:30 the night before following research has to become a student. Alexander Hamilton, gosh, you know, it's amazing to think about what he accomplished and the fact that he is on the face of every one of those $10 bills that's in your wallet right now. If you haven't read about the founding father of the United States Coast Guard and our first treasury director, please pull out your navigators and read anything on Alexander Hamilton, because I believe you're going to be inspired and be able to inspire other young Americans. But Hamilton believed that government ought to promote self-fulfillment, self-improvement, and self-reliance. When I encounter each and every auxiliarist, I see the embodiment of what Hamilton envisioned. I see engaged citizen leaders who live, demonstrate, and promote self-fulfillment, self-improvement, and self-reliance for themselves, but more importantly, for others. So for your purposeful and inspired leadership, the example that you give to us active duty members each and every day, and to the voting public out there, I profoundly thank each and every one of you. And I ask you to please do what you're doing and bring more to the table, because we need you and we need them. Thank you all very much for listening.
All right. We are adjourned. So, don't go home, but you can't.